Hello and welcome back to the Bright Light Wellness YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today, I wanted to have a conversation with you about my own personal evolution with food and diet and thoughts around it because I'm nurturing or nourishing myself. I think this will be a really fun conversation because we kind of tend to think diet is everything. And there's been a time when I thought about it that too, but I want to give you like the whole backstory of my health, diet, history. So, growing up, I grew up as a child in the 90s. So it was a lot of processed packaged foods. It was the eras of microwaves. My mom had two microwaves. I had food addiction early young on. I love food, always ate a lot of food and would come home and oh my goodness, I would like raid the cabinets. I remember I was thin as a child. I didn't really have weight issues, but I would come home and raid the cabinets of like all the junk food that we had, whether it was cereal or processed packaged or processed cheese or cupcakes or whatever. I would come home and eat and watch TV. I specifically remember doing that as a young child. Um, so that was my first like early experiences with the food. Food was just like quick energy, and really like processed pleasure that I was addicted to. And of course there was meal times with families and my mom cooked, but she like used a lot of microwaves and a lot of like quick things when cooking, right? A lot of quick meals, not really homegrown, really there wasn't a lot of there was love of course there, but there wasn't a lot of cooking from scratch. That wasn't really an existence really for me growing up. It was a lot of quick meals. And we would eat together, of course, as a family, which I cherished. And I also was, I would come home and eat all the snacks, right? And then not really be hungry at dinner. But then my mom would say, you have to, I was a slow eater, but then I'd also be told to finish everything on their plate. And as I got older, I guess around puberty time, I started to gain some weight. Not terribly. I was never really chubby as a kid, but like a little bit flabby, a little bit chubby. And I started to think about food in a way to like, if I restrict food, I will, take less in, eat less, move more. I'm gonna be good. So what I started doing when weight became an issue in my like teenage years, something I noticed I had to pay attention to. Like it wasn't, my metabolism wasn't working as effectively. And I will say I started birth control pills. Oh, probably not then though, actually, probably after this. I think once I started getting into puberty, I noticed my weight starting to shift and having a little bit more challenging times with it. So what I did with food is I specifically remember as a child, um, not as a child, but as a teenager, not eating all day and just eating dinner. And like, so I'd fast all day and just eat dinner. I would literally save the money that my parents would give me for food at school to buy food, lunch at school. I would save that money, just get a bottle of water and not eat anything. I might have had something small for breakfast, but I would just not eat and then just eat dinner and then try to like save calories in that regard, right? I was like, okay, this is a way I can cut calories and eat less and maintain my weight. And then I started getting, I remember I guess in high school time, started getting really like having more body image issues. And I want to touch on that as well. And I would get up early in the morning and work out before school. I'd work out, shower, go to school, not eat all day, drink a bottle of water, come home, eat dinner, and that's it. And that was like a way to maintain my weight. And of course, this is driving chronic stress in my body, and I'm driving chronic high cortisol and having issues with leptin issues and all kinds of things. Like the body needs nourishment, probably driving cell danger response, undernourishing my body greatly. And that's not a healthy way to live. And there was a lot of body image issues growing up in my household because my mother always struggled with her weight as well as my like the women in my lineage. My grandmother was heavy and my aunts were all heavy on my mother's side. And even on my father's side, there's that as well. There's a lot of weight issues. So and my mom was always doing yo-yo dieting, so that was really it was shown to me that that's how you do it. Like she'd go on these fasts and then she'd come off of it, or she'd always be, exercising or trying this diet or that diet, like always trying all different diets. And I could see that she never really felt good about herself and her body image was never really where it should be. And, of course that's pressed on me. And I love my mom dearly, but she would comment about my weight when I was heavier, especially. because she didn't, it would really bother her because it's really, it would bother her when it was seen in myself because it was always a really strong insecurity of hers, right? So when it was seen in me, she would reflect that. Like we're all mirrors, basically, right? Um, so then when I got older, and I fell in love, I fell in love with my husband actually at 16. I kind of got a little less rigid about my weight because I was like, oh, I'm in love and I just want to be happy and I'm not really, who cares? And I've started like gaining little bits of weight, but I wasn't heavy. I mean, I'm a 5 foot, I've been about 5 foot, ever since like puberty time and or teenage years. I've not really grown much else. And I was probably like 130, 140. So not like super chubby, but like not obviously a little bit on the huskier side or a little bit overweight. And I was in my phase of like, I'm in love and I don't care. And I just kind of just lived and ate basically the standard American diet and wasn't trying to like lose weight or restrict or do anything. And then I became a special education teacher and I was like, again, really more focused on my career, really focused on just being in a happy marriage. And then in the phase of having a house and then in the phase of having children. And I had 3 children, 3 boys. So very much in that phase of my life of children and establishing my career and my household and all that kind of stuff, right? That was where my focus was, not on myself at all. I mean, I totally lost touch with myself in those years. And I wound up being about 60 pounds overweight. So at this time I'm probably about 170. Like so now I'm this is honestly obese. And what happened for me, I can specifically remember the moment in time where a light bulb went off in me and something shifted. It was about a year after my third child was born, it'd be 2017. And I was laying in bed staring at my blue lit phone. I remember back then, I had no idea of holistic health at all. I was on birth control, by the way, like I mentioned, that definitely messed up my hormones quite a bit. I mean, I used antibiotics and all the things and steroids and just all the things, right? But I'm talking about my evolution of diet, right? So I've been eating the standard American diet most of my adult life at this time. And this was in 2017. So it was about 8 years ago, so I'm like 32-ish. And staring at my blue lit phone at night, which I used to do all the time. And I put my information into a BMI calculator and it says that I'm obese. And I'm like, holy crap. Um, and at this time, food was definitely a coping mechanism for me. I would hide chips in my room and love sweets and chocolate and just all the things. Like, I mean, just food in general. I'm not really like, I didn't really have like one thing that I really loved. I just loved like all food. I was totally food addicted. And eating and watching TV was like a thing. It was the way to relax. It was a way to cope. And yeah. So anyway, at this time I decided I'll never forget that night. And I was like, I am done. I am not happy. I need to do something about my health and I need to make changes. And I would pretend that I was fat and happy, but then I would look at myself in the mirror and really be unhappy. So I decided I was going to take control of my health and uh, I didn't know what that looked like at that time, but I knew diet was certainly the thing, right? I certainly needed to eat less and change my diet. So when I first started to change my diet and tried to get healthier, I went to Weight Watchers. And at that time, Weight Watchers has gone through a lot of evolution and it went through it while I was in the program, which was good evolutions, which I'll talk about. But when I first got into it, it was basically just track all your foods. And it's calorie restriction, right? Which you will lose weight with calorie restriction. So at that time, especially when I was probably obviously eating way more than I needed to and relying on food for coping mechanisms, right? So what I did is I just started tracking and I'm super super type A. So if I put my mind to something, it's going to happen. So I started tracking my foods and just tracking all the things. And with this time when I was doing Weight Watchers, it was nothing. They have what's called free foods now. There was no free foods. I was just literally just tracking every bite that went in my mouth and staying within the allotted points, which would keep my calories low enough for me to lose weight because you get the points based on your weight. So it was just basically calorie restriction. And I was not focused on quality, didn't matter to me. Whatever was the lowest points was what I was going to choose. So if it was spray butter over real butter, that was better. If it was Premier Protein versus real milk, that was better. Not because it had not, I wasn't looking at the long list of ingredients, or I just wanted to eat less so I could lose weight. So I wasn't looking at nutrient density. I wasn't looking at quality of food. I wasn't looking at, organic or anything like that. It was just eat less so I could lose weight. And I lost weight. I lost 60 pounds rapidly within a year. And fat cells are where we store toxins. And when we have them when we've had a poor diet all of our life, which I did, and we've used a lot of suppressive therapies and have a lot of toxic overload. Now you're going to release those toxins into the organs to be detoxed. And that can cause a lot of chaos. And especially when you lose it rapidly, like so quickly, and especially when you're not focused on nutrient density and holistic healing in general, right? So I lost the weight and I felt really great. And I started exercising and walking and jogging and lifting weights and doing yogas and meditations in conjunction. Then my health started to decline and I got a diagnosis of interstitial cystitis after a bladder infection. And this is like, you would think like my health is really doing really well because I look really good. I've lost 60 pounds. Like I look super, super healthy on the outside. But on the inside, I was kind of crumbling. And a couple of things started happening besides the diagnosis of IC. I also was very much injured all the time, like always going to PT because I was always injured. This was also a very low fat diet as well. It was low fat, high carb, and well, I wouldn't say it was high carb then. It was just more processed, I would say. So when I got the diagnosis of IC, that kind of said, okay, I have to make some changes. And the changes I made were, okay, I'm going to get rid of like natural flavors, chemicals, anything that's more processed and move towards whole foods. So that was good. Like I got rid of like, say, the Premier Protein and I went to almond milk, or I got rid of, say, the like artificial sweeteners. I wouldn't use those things. Like those kinds. I made some good holistic shifts. I was like, okay, I'm not going to use artificial sweeteners. They are not good for you. I'm not going to use natural flavors. I'm not going to use like, you know, um, anything like that. So there were some good shifts, but minimal. And at the same time, Weight Watchers was shifting as well in their thinking of what was healthy and not healthy. And they were trying to push people into, and this was a good shift, I would say, in the company. They were shifting to helping people eat more whole, real foods. So whole, real foods became free, whereas so you got less points, but you could eat as much as you want of whole real foods and even lean meats. So things like eggs and leaner meats like chicken breast and leaner like a London broil steak, fruits, veggies. These were all free. You didn't have to track them. So that felt like a good shift for me. So I started eating a ton more fruits and vegetables. Good. More whole real foods. Good. More lean proteins, more, my breakfast went from, so here's a great example. Like my breakfast went from, I'm going to have a processed low carb bagel with cream cheese. Okay. With a Premier Protein to, okay, I'm going to have eggs and veggies because they're free, cheese and stuff was not free. Dairy, anything with a fat content wasn't free. But it was a good shift. And I started eating a lot more fruits and vegetables, I would say, for sure, because they were free. And I was like, oh, I can load up on all these free foods, and that's good. Was not considering things like the amount of glyphosate I was taking in, amount of oxalate I was taking in, balancing the oxalate with calcium because I probably kept dairy pretty low because it was a lot of points. And still eating things probably like, oh, I think I got rid of like Halo. I stopped eating like Halo Top ice cream. I switched to like fruit and yogurt. Like there were good shifts that happened through that transition. Because health is this is a longer video, stay with me, but health is an evolution, right? So I'm evolving through this process. Okay, so now that's my shift there with diet. And you know, my health was still collapsing. I started getting alopecia areata. I still was having the joint pain. I still was having a lot of injuries. I wound up actually getting a diagnosis of Hashimoto's. And of course, diet is absolutely not the cause of any of these things. I'm just trying to explain my process. So after some time, I had a health collapse, and this was very much correlated to about 3 to 4 years after I lost the weight. And it makes sense to me that now I've been in this calorie deficit, because one thing that I didn't do with, even when I got to my goal weight, I stayed in the deficit. I never increased my calories because I was too fearful that I would gain weight. In fact, I would try to, and then I would gain weight, and then I would back off, and I would just keep my calories low. Like with Weight Watchers at that time, I don't know what it's doing now, but you could get maintenance points, and I would never eat my maintenance points, because if I ate my maintenance points, I would gain weight, because they were trying to get you to eat more, which makes sense. Once you reach your goal weight, you should eat more, and your metabolism, which should work optimally. But here's what happened. By calorie restricting, first of all, by losing weight so quickly, I released all the toxins and hormones that are stored in your fat cells. So my hormones became deficient. The toxins were now in my organs instead of in my fat tissues that my body never got rid of, that were stored all those years. I was in a calorie deficit, so I wasn't nourishing my body. So my body was very in a low energy availability state. I didn't know that I could get energy from sunlight and grounding and having optimal circadian rhythms and all that. Wasn't aware of having a healthy lifestyle. So I became very overall depleted in my body, and systems just started failing. Basically, my systems just started failing. And then, because I was in this depleted state where systems were already failing, because living in a low energy availability state for so long, my metabolism was extremely downregulated. So every time I ate something, forget it. My body would be like, oh, we're going to store that shit. It needs it because you've been starving us basically for years. So we need to save this energy because we've been starving literally for years. So that's what happened. So then I went and I had a medical intervention. I'm sure most of you know my story, that really just knocked me on my ass. And that's because I was in an already such depleted state. So then what happened with diet was I got more restrictive, which was probably the worst thing to do, because my symptoms were so horrific and horrible. And I was responding to everything because I was in such a bad state of the cell danger response. I started to restrict more. So at this time, I was like looking at like autoimmune protocol diets, right? Things like that. And I did that for a while. And then I was like, oh, I need to eat more animal based. And I did that for a while. All this was more restriction. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to eat more low oxalate, low histamine. It was just more and more and more restriction. And then I was pretty thin at this time, probably weighing like 110 pounds, which is not like the worst for my body, but probably better at like 115. 5 pounds makes a big difference on a small frame. And but I was still restricting so much. When you're restricting, you're still keeping your body in this calorie deficit, low energy availability state, and still not really learning how to fuel my body in any way. So I hope you're staying with me with this one. I know it's a longer video, but I think it's an important journey to share. Then I decided to go on the carnivore diet, and that really, really tanked me. It was a really poor decision. And it really brought my, not having any carbohydrates just really tanked my system and my metabolism. It downregulated. When your metabolism downregulates, okay, everything works slower. That also includes your immune system and your hormones and your leptin and just your mitochondria. Everything's working slower. So everything was really slow, but I was really sick, and I lost my period for 6 months on that diet. Never came back until I started eating carbs again. And then I also had extreme like water diarrhea for like months. And then I got down to 95 pounds. So I was really, really thin, and it was pretty scary. And I was really, really unwell. So then I said to myself, okay, now it's keto. So I went gone to keto. I upped the fats. I did get my period back, and I started learning much more about circadian biology, circadian rhythms, all of the ways to like really gain energy from your environment, how to mitigate things that steal our energy in our environment. So there were some other things I was doing that was also very supportive at this time to helping me, but keto was still extremely restrictive. And I probably stayed with keto for a while. Um, and I gained a little bit of weight, but healthy weight. So back up to like 110 or so because my body needed to gain weight. And then I came into like this whole like tracking fatigue. I had enough, and I had learned about like seasonal ancestral diets at that time, like eating local seasonal diets. And I kind of shifted out of keto. And that's one summer had gone into like a more, what's in my environment, which is the diet that I still eat now. What is in my environment that can support my health? So I shifted into that after keto. So this is probably around 2022, 2023, probably more closer to 2023. Um, and I had like big tracking fatigue because that I had gone left Weight Watchers, but I was still using my Fitness Pal and all other kinds of trackers. And I had just had such tracking fatigue and said, I had enough of this tracking. I'm just going to eat with the seasons, and I'm going to eat what I want, eat more intuitively. And I did that for a while. And I think that was really healthy for me. But then I started gaining weight, and I was up to like 135, and then not feeling really good in my body with that because I'm like, okay, I'm gaining a lot of weight. But I think my body needed to gain that weight and need to have that to get my body during the healing phase. That was very healthy for me, gaining weight. And not a lot of people understand that. And that's like, wait a minute, why would you want to gain weight? But it's like a rebalancing of the body so my body could get more nourishment and more calories and feel safer and get out of this cell danger response. Because when we're in a deficit for so long, the body is not feeling safe. That's why it stores calories whenever you do give it calories. But then it also is it activates the cell danger response, and it dysregulates our leptin. So I did that for some time and didn't want to track or didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to eat intuitively. And then I guess the last couple of years where I've been back to is thinking about diet. I was still pretty restrictive. I would want to go back. Like, even though I was eating more seasonal, I was still pretty restrictive because I had a lot of food fear. And where I'm at now, I would say, is I'm at a very different place where I'm not having a lot of food fear, and I'm much more relaxed and less rigid about food. So there's always been a lot of rigidity within me with fitting into some sort of like diet camp, right? Right. Doing autoimmune or low oxalate, low histamine, or carnivore or keto, even seasonal. And now I like reached this place where I feel like I'm in a much more balanced state. And what does that look like where I am today? It looks like, of course, during this journey, I didn't mention, which I should have, is that I went all organic, really clean, never eating out, cooking all my meal at home, buying only from local regenerative farmers, eating most of my food from local regenerative farmers, moving from, conventional dairy to raw dairy, changing all my fats to saturated fats, fearing linoleic acid, which I don't anymore. There's been a lot of shifts throughout my diet experience, but where I'm at now, I think is where we should go next, is I'm in a much more balanced state. So my parameters on around diet are, I try to eat as local and seasonal as possible. I try to honor the seasons as much as I can. So where I'm living, so I'm eating more in tune to what's available. And some times of the year, there's less availability of carbohydrates. So I would eat less. And in the summertime, I eat more. And I allow my body to know the season by the light I'm exposed to, the temperature I'm exposed to, and the foods that I'm eating. So I can activate different pathways in my body, whether it's AMPK pathway or mTOR, right? Summer is for mTOR, it's the season of growth. Winter is the season of AMPK pathway, where it's the season of repair. So I allow my body to experience those seasonal shifts, but I'm not rigid or dogmatic about it. And I also am very intuitive about what I want and listen to my body. And I am back to doing a little bit of tracking because I felt like things were a little bit out of control with my intuitive eating. I felt like I was just overdoing it in some aspects, which probably my body needed, but now I'm looking to feel like, a little bit more balanced in myself. So sometimes and I'm kind of feeling like the tracking needs to go again. Like I kind of move out of these phases, but like I needed the reminder of like, oh, how much am I really eating? Like, and I was eating like my fats were like so high. And I probably needed to eat a lot of fats for a while because my body needed it, but you cannot eat the fats and the carbs high together. And it's summer, so I bring my fats lower and I bring my carbs higher. That's what I do in the summer. And in the winter, my fats will be higher, my carbs will be lower. That's just what I do. So I'm at this place now that it doesn't feel rigid or dogmatic. It feels a lot more intuitive with a little bit of mindful tracking to check in and be like, where am I at? And it feels a lot less rigid where I'm like, well, bananas don't grow in New York, but if I want banana, I'm going to have it because the light is strong and my body's asking for it. I even would do that in winter if my body was asking for it. But I'm aware of like things like deuterium and all these things. So there's awareness around it, but it's not like, doesn't feel like rigid. And like I eat out sometimes and I don't feel like, oh my goodness, I ate some seed oils and the whole thing is going to be a disaster. Right. So I think I've really established like a clear balance in my body where it's like, and it took a long, long time to get here, but it's like, I've really let go of a lot of food fear, which feels really amazing. And I've let go of a lot of rigidity and control, even though there's still some and I'm still a work in progress. It feels like I've let go of a lot of that. And I'm just kind of more intuitive. And I naturally crave what's in season. So for me, in the winter, I was craving a lot more stews and soups and warm foods and root vegetables and complex carbohydrates. And as soon as the spring came, I wanted less fats. I wanted more fruit. I wanted just freshness. I feel like summer. And now that summer's here, I could eat fruit all day long. Like I want fruits so much and I don't want a lot of dense meats. And I don't in my body, my body is very in tuned with what's in nature and it asks for it. It's just really kind of cool. And that is because I've been living with this beautiful in sync with nature, basically. Um, and I've been able to let go of a lot of rigidity and falling into like any kind of diet camp. So I'm not in any diet camp. I just eat what's in season, but I also eat what I crave. And I also try to make sure that I'm not overdoing it because I can use food as a coping mechanism. So I don't want to do that. But I feel like that is so much less than it's ever been in my whole life. And I feel very stable, which feels really like a really great place, but it's taken time. And I wanted to share that evolution with you today. If you want to learn more about my diet principles, because I do follow diet principles, but like I said, I'm not perfectionistic or rigid or dogmatic about any of them. Okay. So if you want to learn more about that, okay, you can check out my Ancestrally and Seasonally Nourished webinar and recipe ebook. I am constantly evolving it. So first of all, what is that? That's a 2-hour webinar teaching you how to eat a local ancestral seasonal diet. And then there's a recipe ebook that goes along with it, which teaches you about recipes or provides recipes and tells you the season you should eat them in. And the more that you marry that with my Get Your Light Right protocol or webinar, the more that you will naturally feel in sync with the seasons and be craving what comes in seasons. Like in the springtime, I'm like, oh my God, I want dandelion root tea and I want asparagus and I want arugula. Like all these bitter foods come into my realm because they're growing in nature and my body also craves them. And that's why I'm craving fruits right now because they are abundant in nature. That's why I want those things. And as soon as the fall comes, I'm going to want the pumpkins and the apples and the corn and all of that. It'll come. Okay. Anyway, I think you understand my point. So my ancestrally and seasonally nourished recipe ebook and webinar is a super great resource if you want to learn more about that. And the recipe ebook is always evolving. So I'm always adding new recipes to it, which is so super fun. And I really, really enjoy doing that. And I love creating in the kitchen. It's super fun for me. I love to cook and I love to make nourishing foods. It's so fun. It's so fun. So yeah, you can check that out. It's a great resource to have. And once you download it, you have it for life, and you always will get the updates. You just have to refresh the app. It's on Google Docs, no, Google Slides. Just refresh it and you'll have any updates. Okay. Once you have it saved in your Google files, your Google Doc files, it's there. Um, and the other thing I would say is if you want support around letting go of rigidity and food fear and really connecting with nature and your environment, you could work with me one-to-one. This supports our health of our mitochondria. Of course, my health is obviously resolved. I'm in a much better, healthier place, as you can see. So you can check out working with me in my one-to-one containers where I do things like ancestral and seasonal nourishment and connecting with, light and circadian biology and connecting with nature and cellular hydration and mitochondrial health and cellular health and nervous system work and rhythmic movements and homeopathy and all the things. So if you want to work with me in that capacity, if you're really struggling, that's what I'd recommend. And I hope that this helps you realize like the evolution of my diet. I don't like always have to eat organic. Like I'm just not, I try to, but if I'm out and it's a restaurant and I really want to eat something, I just can't stress if it's organic or not. Like I just want to just enjoy my life and trust that my body can handle it, which it can because I've built resilience. Um, I think it's what we do consistently that matters, not what we do in perfection. It doesn't have to be perfectionistic. It's just consistency that matters. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that brings you some ease and clarity around diet. And I hope that gives you some resources and just kind of understand my process and evolution, how I've come to land where I've landed. And of course, I'm always striving for home cooked meals with the best quality I can give my body that's seasonal and local. But it doesn't have to be with any rigidity or dogma. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it with somebody who you love and care about. And I will chat with you guys on the next video. Have a great one.